Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with the Dillon Hales, the owner of Yeti Welding. How you doing today, Dillon?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for letting us come out. It's kind of a little bit hard getting everything set up, you know. I kind of come with baggage, I guess I should say.
Well, we all do, right?
But no, thanks for inviting us, man.
Yeah, happy to have you here. This is fun. Little different format for us too, so excited to do this today.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Dillon, and I'll let you tell your own story. But basically, Dillon grew up on a farm. Being on a farm, had to learn how to weld, and probably weld well, or your dad would kick your butt up and around your shoulders, right?
Right.
So that part of it you nailed, but then you had to find a way to accelerate your business and really learn how to grow that footprint and find success. And what Dillon did that's really unique and that I don't see a lot of yet, I think it's catching on and companies are starting to try and do this better, but Dillon used social media to really grow that business more rapidly than just doing a good job at welding. Is that right?
Yeah, no, for sure. You're spot on. So I guess I could give you a little bit more background, kind of what you just said. The first time I ever received money for welding, the local grain dispensary here called me up and said, "Hey, we need something to be welded on a forklift," and I welded it. And they said, "Well, how much do we owe you?" And I'm like, I don't know. You know, we'll catch you on the next one. You know, do a good turn daily. You know, on the farm, it was always kind of like that. And they're like, "No, we'll get you some money. How does should we write a check to you?" And I was like, "Please, I don't need any money. You guys did great for us." And they, I told them, "Just give me $50 will be good." And I was there for like 4 hours. I'm like 14, 15 years old, you know. And but anyway, he brought me out a check for like $250, and that's when I was like, "Whoa, I can make money as a welder." And that's where it all sparked from there, kind of evolved into, you know, getting into the welding and stuff. But and then I just kind of knew I needed to be a little bit more loud in the welding because I was super young when I got into welding, and it just kind of escalated from there. And I did find great success in using media.
Nice. So did you learn most of that in like shop or was it just on the farm?
The weld skill?
Yeah.
So when I grew up, we had an old 1971 Miller welder. It didn't even have like the dial on it to control your heat. Like you had to plug it out and plug it into a different port for as far as like the heat. My grandpa had this old welding hood from Geneva steel from way back when. When you weld, I didn't know that you could actually see what you were looking at. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Until I went to high school and I took a welding class, and they had these brand new auto darkening helmets, and I could weld and I could see the puddle, and I was like, holy crap. I went home, told my grandpa, I was like, "Grandpa, did you know you could see the weld puddle?" And, you know, he was probably just like, you know, I should have just cleaned the lens out in the hood. But he's like, you know, he built off that excitement and was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And then so to answer your question, I learned on the farm, but I didn't know that you could actually see. I thought it was just like you had to weld by like the Jedi Force, you know.
You
like,
feel the weld.
Yeah, you could kind of see this orange glow. And then I got to high school and I was like, whoa, you could actually see the puddle and the metal form together. And that's when it kind of escalated. And then I really took hold of it in high school. And Sean Black was the teacher there. He's now teaching at Payson, and he kind of helped me understand the principles of welding.
Okay.
And right out of high school, there was a company that was looking for experienced welders. And me and my friend kind of just applied for it as a joke, like, "Hey, we got experience. We got 7 years of experience. We've been welding since we were 14, you know?"
Right.
So we applied, and they kind of laughed at us when we went in. This big company. And anyway, we did a weld test. They're like, "Hey, if you guys can pass the weld test, we'll send you on the road." We passed the weld test, and then, like a week later, they I would hit the road, and I did a lot of on-the-job learning that way, and hit the pipelines for about 5 or 6 years. And then I didn't want to travel as much, so that's why I kind of settled. But for the most part, I say I learned most of my welding principles from the farm and kind of honed them in through high school. I didn't take any trade classes or technical training, just high school and then on the job. Yeah, you know, and that's most stuff in welding needs to be done on the job. You can learn a lot in the trade schools and get your principles right where they need to be, but as it escalates, you know, to gain the majority of the knowledge that you need and skill, it's got to be done in the field. There's just no other way around it. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And I don't know why I stuck with it to make money. You know, I went to college. I was in college 2 years. And then one day I told my wife, I'm like, I just want to be a welder. You know, I got like a D on my business plan for my business class, and it was on a welding company. Okay. And I was like, I'm making $40,000-$50,000 part-time going to school. I'm like, how much could I make if I was full-time? Right. You know, I was making great money on the pipeline welding, and I knew if I could just do it on my own, you know, struggle for a couple of years, that maybe we could make something out of it. And I never thought it would be what it is today.
Wow. So you were getting a D in college, but an A on the job, right?
I guess. I mean, I hope I was getting an A. I don't know.
Well, you're here, right?
Yeah.
You're still rolling.
Right. We're still rolling 6 years later. So this is year 6.
Wow.
Welding for us.
Cool.
Completely debt-free in our company, too. I want to make that known. That we literally didn't take a dime from anybody. We started from a 2-wheel drive Ford Ranger and a 1971 Miller welder. And now we have 4 employees. And I think I have 6 welding trucks and like 12 welders. I do have a problem with buying too many welders. That is the problem.
Yeah, need to get some guys for those.
Well, yeah, like
if you could find them.
Yeah, if I could find guys. When I grew, growing up, if you had a nice engine drive welder, or in any shop, they're always like, man, if only I had an engine drive welder, I could make it. So every time I see a good deal on the classifieds for a good welder, I pick it up and stock them up, But yeah, so that's how I got into welding, and here we are. We started originally welding decorative and ornamental iron when I started on my own.
Like railings and stuff like that?
Railings and decorative stuff, because I knew it was a lot lower entry point versus doing big commercial projects. And then I kind of just built it off of that, one tool at a time. There's a lot of different ways I do it now, but that's how I started. That's how I got into welding, and here I am. Just a dirty welder.
That's okay. You clean up nice.
Yeah, it's funny. Mark's like, how come you look all dolled up? I'm like, what? I always wear this. And he's like, no, that's a new shirt. And I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't want to have holes and stuff all in my shirts everywhere. Show up to you guys' nice castle here, Right. Maybe if we were at the shop, I would have had all my holy shirts. But since we were able to do this in person, unlike your other podcasts, I was like, yeah, I'll throw on a fly shirt for Mike, saying
Yeah, you look like you're ready to go to a wedding.
I know, right? Yeah, give it a couple months, and this will have like holes in it, and they're like burn marks all on the chest, and I'll have like UV fade on the right hand, because that's where you hit the weld. My left arm will be like perfectly the same color, and the UV will be all faded on this side. And then you'll see me in the gas station and be like, is that guy?
Who is that kid?
Some people's children,
Right. That's funny.
Yeah.
So tell me, you started real young. You came essentially from your farm, and from, I guess some high school welding, essentially. But how did you go from that to getting the kind of camera angles and video footage and shots and things that you do? Because you got a really cool, your Instagram page especially is very entertaining. It's fun to watch. I mean, I'm a construction guy by trade historically, but it's just enjoyable to watch you guys on your lives. You're up in that tower welding stuff and, craning people up and doing kind of funny, crazy things. You film that yourself, or how do you watch that footage?
So how it kind of started, I didn't think I would push social media as hard. In the beginning, I worked in a shop where everybody was always complaining about the boss. Everybody wanted to change stuff in the shop, and nobody was willing to go off on their own. And I went off on my own, But like I said, I was just starting, a young kid. I'm young right now, and I look young. But when I shave and clean up really nice, you'd still think I was in junior high. But I got that effect when I would go onto these big job sites. You know, I thought the only way to get work was to go onto a construction site and get the work. So I'd go with my 2-wheel drive Ford Ranger and my little welder, and I'd go to a construction site, and I'd be looking around, and this is me at like 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
And I'd be looking and be like, hey, who's the superintendent? Can I talk to the superintendent? And I'd find the GC on the site, and I'd say, hey, you know, I'm Dillon. I do welding. And they'd kind of look at me, and then they'd look at my truck, and they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, we got some stuff going on. And I could tell that they needed structural iron in the house, and they needed some handrails. But I could tell the feel when I'd meet those GCs on the project that they're like, I can't give it.
Yeah.
What kind of
You're not welding my stuff.
What kind of credibility is this high school dude? You know, he's growing up in this 2-wheel drive Ranger, and I did that. I beat my head against the wall trying to get these general contractors to see me. And I'm like, how do I tell them that I grew up on a farm, that on the farm you have to fix and solve problems, and I've been doing that for already years. Although young, most farm kids will attest that you do everything. You do everything.
Mm-hmm.
How do I convey that to these GCs that I'm meeting and say, hey, although I and my crew could be young, we can handle your project? And I knew that the only way it was going to do that is to be able to slip into their bedroom at night, you know, when they're scrolling through Facebook, when they're scrolling through LinkedIn, when they're scrolling through Instagram, and all of a sudden they see me, you know, in that same 2-wheel drive Ranger, but doing something else. You know, that was free time. That's free time to enter into that GC's head. When I'm on a construction site, you know, and I was just there trying to get his business, it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And I started my Facebook with just some really ugly, not very glamorous shots at all, of just some handrails. But I was getting comments on my Facebook page from local people saying, hey, I saw that you did a handrail. Can you do mine?
Nice.
And then it just went from one project to the next, you know, and as I took pictures and built more of a portfolio, it just kind of grew and escalated. And so that's kind of when my eyes started opening, when people were contacting me through Facebook saying, hey, we live, you know, in Santa Clara, we need this. That's when I was like, hey, I need to figure out how to do this more, because none of the shops around in Utah County were doing that. Startups like me, there's a lot of startups and a lot of dudes I could call out here on the podcast, but they were doing the same, but we were all figuring it out at the same time, you know, because I rose up. It was new. Yeah, it was new.
Yeah.
It was new at the time.
Yeah.
But I could kind of see that if I was going to be in it and in a trade, I wanted to have the loudest stick.
Nice.
So that even though I look young when I roll up on the job site, even if I'm in a brand new Ford or that old 2-wheel drive Ford Ranger, that the generals would be like, hey, those guys, I've seen what they can do. And, you know, not just judge me from the very beginning. That was kind of my takeoff, and then media just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, and I imagine, and I've seen your content evolve, and obviously your projects have gotten more complex and bigger. You're doing some more cool things, so to speak. How have you had to adapt your approach to capturing that content out on the job site in order to continue to display that in the best light possible?
So as we were capturing content, it became a saying in our shop that we're not a welding company, we're a photography company.
Interesting.
We want to take pictures of cool stuff we're doing. Because after we did the handrail game, everybody's doing handrail around because of how much construction's going on around here. You know, a lot of iron needs to go into the homes. So like what would set us apart from the other companies, because we like doing handrail, we enjoy it, there's money in it.
Yeah.
But we don't like it and we don't enjoy it at the same time. You know, it's a love-hate relationship. So then we were like, we only want to take pictures of the cool handrail. We'll only post pictures of the cool stuff. And then, you know, me and McKay, I think it was about the time that we met Ryan, one of the founders here at WorkMax, that we're like, we only want to take pictures of cool stuff. And we said that, and we turned down a lot of projects, actually, because it wasn't quote-unquote cool.
Wasn't as marketable, right?
Yeah, we didn't want to do it because we wanted a cool picture. We wanted a floating staircase.
Yeah.
And so then as we started doing that, and we literally made it a mentality of like, hey, we want to take a cool picture. We molded it into that, and it didn't. That was like what set us off, but it's not what we go off of now. Now we go off of, we're gonna still take on any projects that we can and do them because we're bigger, we have larger infrastructure. But we are going to post the coolest ones, obviously. And we do post a lot of that, like, I lost a bet or whatever. We didn't win on this one, we bad well, this fell.
Which is good, right? The authentic content that's real.
Yeah.
People appreciate that.
Yeah, well, people appreciate
Every job isn't amazing.
No.
Like, some of them are like...
Right.
Yeah.
And off that same note that you mentioned, Mike, like, people want to see their own projects on your own stuff. Right. People took that to heart when they'd see, when they'd have us do a project for them, they'd see us like posting it on our stories and stuff. They could see their project in the shop. That meant a lot.
Yeah,
and it does.
Sure,
it's cool. It's cool, and so then that kind of helps propel what our agenda is in doing projects, because more people, even if they pay more or less, they just want to see their own project on somebody else's page.
Sure, they're proud of it, right? Yeah. Ryan showed us his barn, the beams, the different iron, decorative iron, the doors, the gates, all of that stuff. And guess what? We thought it was awesome. Like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and the homeowners aren't going to take a picture. I think you're living in the same cul-de-sac, right? I remember I saw your railing, and I was like, I wonder who did that. And I mobbed Instagram until I found it. Nice. But you didn't post it on your own stuff,
I did.
You weren't like, hey, I just built a new house.
You're right.
Check out this awesome rail. But when you see it on Ryan's page, because it was Rigby that did your stuff, you're like, hey, honey, take a look. This is our house, and you're showing her, and you're in your house, like, that's special to you guys.
Sure.
It's special to our clients.
Yeah.
We took awesome pictures of Ryan's projects when we were done.
Mm-hmm.
We sent them to him, and I think that means...
That's nice. So you share that content with the customer.
Yeah.
So they can then hopefully share it out,
tag
you, and give you an opportunity to get it in front of more people.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of how I evolved in taking pictures. Like, I didn't set out to say we're going to be a media company or we're gonna do what we're doing now. It just kind of evolved, but the whole end goal was to share more with our customers and to be able to get in front of people with the credibility that we wanted, that I was looking for.
Love it. This is modern day marketing, people.
Yeah, no.
So listen up. This is good stuff.
100%.
And now you've invested in some equipment. Probably got some drone stuff. You've got somebody full time that spends time capturing content for you. Is that right?
Yeah. So in our notes here, there's a picture of the pool,
right?
Of the Olympic sized pool,
yep.
Right? That's a pretty cool project, and I didn't want to miss it. And we've spent
because you wanted the footage.
I wanted the footage. We floated a barge on an Olympic sized swimming pool.
Wow.
And then they put a lift.
Because the water was still in it, right? So how do you get above that?
And the way that the architects and engineered the building, there was no way to get a boom lift in the building. They didn't put a door big enough. They didn't put a removable window. There was no way to get a lift in there.
Okay.
And inevitably, it was going to cost more money to blow out a wall just to get a 100-foot boom lift in there versus just to float a barge on there. But I didn't want to miss it because that's a cool shot.
Right.
How often do you do that? But so I hired, I just tried to get some part-time people to just shoot some footage of it, but and Lad did a great job. But there was times that we were doing cool stuff that Lad wasn't there, and so I was like, I need to have my own stuff. So I went to the camera store and I got the nice Canons, and I got some more equipment to help us capture it, and that's the behind the scenes things that people don't see as often. But we did it for 4 years off our iPhone. Right.
Selfie stuff, right?
Yeah, selfie stuff. Cameras are great on iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all people are looking for too, but we have invested a lot. And the next chapter of Yeti Welding is going to be a lot more loud. We're looking to grow a lot more in the next year to 2 years. And so I know from our success that whoever has the loudest stick in marketing, even in the welding world, is going to get the game.
Mm.
And I think that goes for any industry,
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody needs to have this fancy equipment in their stuff, in their own
Arsenal.
their own arsenal, or their own toolbox. But that's just the way that we're taking it. But I think anybody could use it off an iPhone and get away with it.
Well, how do you start anything? You start.
Yeah, no, you start.
Do something, right?
100%.
So start with your flipping phone, right? Or not your flipping phone, because they don't have flip phones
Yeah, your touchscreen phone. Right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so just start. You just have to start.
So the thing that I really keep going back to is that phrase. Say it again. Okay, so you're not a welding company. You're what?
We're a photography company. We're not a welding company. We're a photography company. We're a media company. We wanted to take pictures of cool stuff. That's what we wanted to do, and inevitably, that's what came to us as we posted that stuff. And we said, "Hey, do you guys have a staircase you need? Floating staircase?" That's what we did. Mm-hmm. "Hey, do you guys have a really weird project that none of the other people are wanting to do?" That's what we did.
Interesting.
And, there was a little bit of money side to those things because a lot of the companies around here, they didn't want to do the weird stuff or the wild stuff. Mm. And so people would stay away from it. And, on the other hand, for us, we're like, that'd be a great opportunity to, one, get a great picture. Right. Two, help out our client who can't find anybody to do it. And three, make a little bit extra money because it's a project. But it all started off of, let's take a cool picture.
So what is the craziest project you've ever done in your mind? Anything come to mind? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Craziest project, we worked on a building, on a construction site where we cut apart shipping containers and used them as a facade.
Oh, I heard about that.
On a building.
Yes.
In Springville.
Over by that restaurant, Strap Tank, or next to that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the wildest projects that we worked on.
So like the big Connexes, the huge suckers.
The huge Connexes, the big shipping containers. Our client wanted to make a building look like shipping containers.
Wow.
And people were dipping out of it. And I wanted the shot, Mike. I wanted the photo. It was hard work. We burned through a lot of people because they didn't like, they didn't like doing the work that we were doing.
What did you have to do? Tell the listeners about that.
So we had to, because of the way that the engineering of the building, they wanted it to look like a shipping container building. But the engineering wasn't allowing them to do it and build a building as big as they wanted without having extra supports everywhere. And he just didn't think it was economical, but he really wanted that look. He wanted the feel, of it being shipping containers. And so their way of doing it was they would use the corrugated sides as siding on the building. And we cut them apart. We cut the roofs out of them. We cut the floors out of them. And then we used the sides of them essentially as the siding for the building for its protective coating. And I think we cut probably like 70 or 80 of them. We lost track after 50 or 60.
How many blades did you burn? Thousands, maybe hundreds? What was it? Blades or what
so
did you use?
We used a lot of variable different stuff.
Okay.
We used 8-inch Milwaukee carbide blade saws. Those were really good for cutting certain aspects.
Okay.
Other aspects we used 16-inch power, gas-powered.
Okay. Like a still.
Like a still, yeah. We had them all. Man. We had so many of them. We had stills, Husqvarna, we had them all.
Right.
And we used diamond blades that cut through pretty much anything because we needed the depths of those to cut the floors and the bottoms. And then we used your torches and plasma cutters and stuff like that. But mainly our 16-inch saws and our 8-inch saws. But I think we had 200 blades, 200 of those diamond blades. They're like $100 a piece.
20 grand.
Yeah, 20 grand in just 8-inch carbide discs.
Wow.
And then the 16-inch blades, we go through about one every other week. So we used about 20 of those maybe per saw. So there was quite a bit, probably about $40,000 worth of cutting consumables just in blades, aside gases and stuff. That was that was probably the wildest project we've been on.
I've never heard of anything that wild.
Yeah, and it lasted a full year. It took us a year to do the project, and it was just really cool, the whole process of it. And I'd say that one to date was our wildest project.
And still profitable?
Yeah, it was. It took a lot of my manpower, and I kind of got tunnel vision in it, and I just was really focused because it was so cool. I was so focused on it that I kind of let others go.
Sure.
And that probably could have been a great opportunity for growth, but I was just so tunnel focused, and that was bad on my part. But it was great. But then 2020 hit, and we actually did 6 times the amount of money and projects than we did in 2019 as we were there for a full year. But it was a great paying project, yeah, for sure. But
good for you. Well, it's long game, right? Maybe the opportunity cost short term, but down the road, you are always going to be the dude that did that building.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. My name's plastered all over that, and you know we didn't miss a shot.
Sweet.
One regret I have is I wish I could go back in time and say, hey, hire this dude.
Right.
Mark behind the camera, so I'm pointing to. Hire this dude to capture it all. Because we captured a lot with our iPhones, but we didn't capture everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, you got to work too, right?
Yeah. We definitely had to work. But I think the payoff would have been much worth it. You know, I mean, $20,000 in blades. What would have been the payroll cost on somebody to work for 3 or 4 months?
Yeah,
You do the math. But no, it was fun.
Awesome. So with that, how much time do you have to allot for getting the footage, the shots? I mean, as far as taking a hit on production, you know what that number looks like?
Yeah, that's a good point. And when I saw that in the notes, I kind of laughed. I was like, this is funny.
You're like, wait, I don't know if I want to ask that question.
Right? I don't know if I want to answer it, Mike.
Yeah.
At first, it was like, hey, we would do something, and we're like, dude, we should grab a shot of that, and we would undo it. But that was in the very beginning stages where it was just me and one other guy.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But it's become so normal now that we're 4 years into it that my employees all know, I know, that if something we're doing is like, they know it could be a good shot.
They're telling you in advance.
Well, they don't even tell me now. It's become a company culture. That like if somebody pulls out a phone, you know, and it's not like they're not like going like this or looking to scroll, but if they pull out a phone like this, that just means keep working because they're going to get a shot. And if they stop, then it slows us down because we like to execute projects as fast as possible. We love doing stuff. And the faster you get something done, the more money you can make. Time is money. So when we see a phone come out now, it's just really normal for us just to keep moving on.
Just background noise to what you're doing, right?
Yeah. So I'd say in the beginning stages, like creating that culture was a little bit strugglesome. And, you know, I'd see an employee pull out a phone and I'd be like, dude, get off your phone.
Interesting.
But then later we'd finish a job and then I'd be like, hey, does anybody have any good shots? You know, and the one employee actually put me on my place, and he's like, well, you told me to get off my phone.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, dude, were you trying to get a shot? Yeah, I was trying to get a shot of that crane flying that big box in there. Oh, shit, dude, sorry. That's my bad.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, that's a little painful to tell employers, like, hey, you got to give a little bit more leniency to your employees to use their phones.
Sure.
But now, camera comes out, shots, and the best practices that we found are shots are taken, and then shots are taken to whoever's posting for the day.
Yeah.
You know, so that person just hurry and just add them into an airdrop to the phone, and we'll just keep moving on with the project. So to answer your question, in the beginning stages, it took a lot of time. Now it's almost seamless, and it doesn't seem like it takes any more time than it regularly does. And when the camera comes out, everybody works safer, everybody works smarter, because of the backlash that you can get online.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Right? Because the camera will come out, and if they're doing something that could be a violation, or even just something that could be made fun of, like, hey, why are you doing something like your shoes untied? As simple as your shoes untied. You know, you got those people online. But, you know, when a camera comes out, people are working safer and smarter and more effective, because they're like, hey, I don't think, it almost makes everybody rethink, like, do we have that piece of metal rigged right? I know it can go into the hole once with the crane, but are we sure? Because what if somebody sees them, you know, and it makes us think. So our safety practice is almost like gone up, especially on that tower project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I saw that. You guys were strapped in. Everybody had harnesses. You were talking on your Instagram Live about being safe and, making sure. I mean, I was really impressed, actually, because I thought, wow, these guys have it dialed in.
Yeah. I mean, we even swapped out our hard hats. We had those Italian hard hats with the chin straps, got made fun of a couple of times. But, like the first time I had my hard hat on and I looked down, my hard hat was almost going to fall.
Yeah.
And we were in a really confined space and I didn't want anybody to get hurt.
Right.
And so we had all of our safety stuff, double yo-yo lanyards, like everything 100% tie off. It was a super safe job. And, our GC on the project, he walked in, he's like, man, you guys really go all out. And I'm like, what do you mean we go all out?
That's how you roll.
And he's like, well, I thought maybe you'd have like a safety rope or something, but he's like, you guys got like everything, the harness. He was like, pulling my harness, He's like, you guys got everything. And I'm like, well, yeah, that was included in our bid to be safe, to be the best.
Good for you. Yeah, I love it. We had a guest, I don't know if you heard this episode, but Trent Cotney. He's a attorney out of Florida that specializes in safety and OSHA regulation and defending and helping contractors, training contractors how to be safe, avoid OSHA fines.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that he talked about, is that companies do have to be careful, making sure, again, they're not documenting something that's unsafe. So glad to hear that you're aware of that and have kind of gotten ahead of it. And like you said, it actually has made you safer because there's an awareness that you have to be more careful and cautious because you're out in front of the world, right?
Yeah. And I mean, speaking from experience, I took a picture on that project. We were actually I was standing on a pallet, and the pallet was on a forklift. The pallet was maybe 2 or 3 feet off the ground, but nonetheless, the picture portrayed that I was in the air, and I wasn't tied off. But, 2 feet, 3 feet off the ground was really all the picture was. And I don't know if it was that exact photo or if it was just coincidence, because the gal didn't tell me. But later the next day or the same day, within the time I posted, we had an OSHA inspector on the job site. And me being the young innocent dude that I played the innocent card. I was walking through a parking lot and I saw her sitting there kind of like watching my guys, and I was like, oh, she's going to grab a picture. I saw the state seal, and I asked, I just poked a little questions, and I texted all my dudes and said, hey, make sure you're all safe. But that's when it really hit me, like, yeah, you can definitely get in trouble for it, but at the same time, what's the risk for reward? The risk is you're going to get a fine or a penalty for doing something wrong, but the risk of losing the shop, to me, is worth more. And as long as everybody's being safe, it doesn't matter if it's a photo or not. They can come and talk to me, and then, as long as our photos are safe. It's just kind of evolved that everybody works safe now, just like that tower you said, If you could see, you joined our lives.
It was obvious, yeah.
It was obvious that we couldn't, we were 100% compliant with whatever we could.
And you don't know who's joining. Anyone can join, right? You're live.
Yeah.
You're public.
Yeah,
so.
we had like 1,200 people join that live.
That was crazy.
In and out. So, but, again, it almost made us more safe because we're not afraid to document what we're doing because we are being as compliant as possible. And if we're not compliant, I'd hope that somebody come and tell me as an employer,
Sure.
I don't want guys to even use, in my shop, if you use a grinder without a guard, you're done. Wow. It's like, you get like 2 warnings. And that's it. In most shops, in welding shops, you don't see guards on grinders. We get made fun of and post a picture of the guard on our grinder. What do you got that guard on there
Sissy
for?
guard, right.
And I'm like, I'll fly to Alabama and show you how to use a grinder with a guard on it. If there's any position you can't do with a guard on it, then, So, some people, I haven't listened to that podcast, but some people might be afraid of that. But my advice to those listeners is, just trust in your employees a little bit more and make sure that company culture is simply safe.
Yeah, I think the most refreshing thing, and it's, I like social media. We have accounts here. We try and, post and share our content as well, like a lot of companies, but it's just so refreshing to see not only the cool jobs you're doing, but I can feel as a third party, you guys are having a great time. you're enjoying your job, you're enjoying your life, you're enjoying this journey that you're on. And I think it's just really cool that you're doing it and you're sharing it with the world and being an example to others.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I imagine do you mentor others? I mean, do you have people that kind of check in with you or ask you questions or try and get ideas?
As far as for media?
Yeah, like other companies, maybe other subs that are on the project. I mean, do you have companies that reach out to you for those types of feedback items?
Yes, and it's kind of like, I don't feel like I'm pioneering in a way, but when we're on a job site and there's, electricians and plumbers and stuff, but we want to do a video, we quickly ask everybody. We're like, hey, are you guys good? We're going to take a photo.
Right.
Are you guys okay? And I've been surprised that some people, they kind of run out of the photo or whatever, but there are those people that have come up to us and say, well, how come you're doing this? What are you doing? And then we're like, oh, well, don't you follow us on Instagram? We do that I use that line all the time.
Cool.
Don't you follow us on Instagram? Or I don't give business cards out to people because I just see them get thrown away. Yeah, it goes back to my original days. I bought, Vistaprint. I got my 1,000 business cards. I was handing out to all general contractors and it just out the door in the garbage.
Yeah.
But when I go there and they're like, oh, well, send me your contact info. And I'm like, well, do you got Instagram? No, do you got Facebook? You got TikTok? They're going to have one of them.
Right.
They're going to have one of them.
Right.
And I use that all the time. You just hit the contact link and all my stuff's there. Make sure you follow us to keep up on cool projects.
Nice.
And they'll say they didn't follow me. They'll say they didn't check our stuff out, but being a business account, you can see the analytics.
You can see it, yeah.
I can see that, John just watched my Instagram stories and he went through and liked a couple photos from a year ago. So they were mobbing the accounts.
Yeah. And you've got, probably close to 15,000 now?
I think we're 15 or 16,000 followers. But, yeah, that number doesn't matter. And it shouldn't matter for any company.
Okay. Why not?
Because, in my view, this is my personal view, I would rather have 5 people follow me through the fire versus 10,000 people watch me burn. Right?
Okay.
So, even if you've got a small following, your company is trying to start media and you're like, well, but we don't have this many numbers or whatever. If your numbers are if you have 100 people following you and you have really good people who are following you,
that's plugged in.
That's what should be more important.
How engaged are they?
How engaged are they? Because that inevitably, at the end of the day, it's not about your main number. Because the analytics of all these social medias are all running completely wild and different now. Not all 15,000 followers of ours get to see our stuff on a daily basis or a weekly basis. But it's just about how many people are actually genuine on there. I think ours is I think we have about 15%. I think that's our rates right now.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
I think anything over 10 is a pretty solid number.
Yeah, so we're 15% right now. But I do a lot of people ask me, hey, because you can see over my Instagram, as you said, you can see how we've kind of started and evolved up. And I do talk a lot about my humble beginnings and my starts, how I started. But I do have a lot of people ask me, how should I go about getting work? And the first thing I say is you just start building yourself a portfolio online to give yourself that credibility. So I do kind of help people, influence them a little bit in that way to answer your question in that regard. They reach out and say, hey, how could I do this or what should I do that? And I've reached out to as many people in Utah County that are doing welding and tried to be in their shop and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're seeing that's worked.
So you're doing it with even competitors or?
Yeah, because that's another rabbit hole we could go down. Of course, I had a competitor that we were like this. I'd show up and he'd give a bid and I'd show up and they're like, hey, so-and-so just came here. And I'd be like, I'll do it for half. There was big animosity.
Oh, boy.
There was big animosity between us. And one day I was like, you know what? They blocked us on Instagram and I have to follow my personal account to see what they're doing. And I was like, I'm done. There's so much work in the construction trade. I'm like, everybody should be working together.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be everybody's numbers are different, but they're all the same at the same time. I'm like, it doesn't matter about who gets the project or who doesn't. Just I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, who did your rail? And I mobbed Instagram and looked for your rail. Why didn't I get Mike's rail?
Right.
Why did I only have to do Matt and Ryan's?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I started reaching out to those other people and showing them up in their shops, you know, and tagging them in our photos and calling them out. And then we built a really great community of welders around here that we all jab and have fun on Instagram together, and we also share a lot of projects, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next. Is you probably need some help from some of those guys on occasion.
Yeah.
You got more guys, right? You get a big project, might need some help.
Yeah. Or like a lot of the guys around here, they know that I don't like to do rail anymore. We do it for certain contractors.
Okay.
But in the same regards, those companies love to do rail. So when we come across a rail project that we're like, hey, we can do this for you, but this is our time frame because of our bigger projects. But we know a guy that is amazing, and then we send them that way. And then they get like a weird project, and they're like, whoa, you know, we got to get those to the Yeti guys. You know? They say, hey, follow the Yeti guys, or take it, you know. So we built a really great community just simply because we've been able to reach out and talk amongst ourselves. And literally it all became because of Instagram. I don't think I would have just randomly walked into some guy's shop and been like, hey, is Dillon around here?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
But anyway, so.
Love it. I did notice you don't really have a website or anything either, do you? I mean, not really anything that you keep up to date or
No.
online presence.
No. When will this podcast air?
Probably the next few weeks.
Few weeks, so it'll be right away.
Not
So, we did have a website. I took it down, and then we were actually going to become an apparel company.
Okay.
I was wanting to do safety.
Like welding apparel,
yeah,
safety
like
stuff?
safety stuff. And then money got the best of me. You know, I had some cool projects come up. So that website's kind of turned on and turned off, and right now it's currently down, and we're in the construction mode.
Okay.
We're going to roll out something pretty cool. Now that we have a team for media, we're going to roll a sweepstakes.
Oh,
We're going to give away one of my dearest welders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So as long as this is going to air in a couple of weeks.
Does it come with free training?
For to
use a welder?
Yeah. I'll come out and show you how.
Okay.
I'll come out and show you how to use it if you win it.
Fire it up.
Yeah, fire it up, run some beats.
Okay.
But so I wasn't planning on being a welder my whole life, and
Interesting.
this little welding, you know, it just evolved, and I didn't really think that we needed a website because we have Instagram. We have the contact info there. We have our Facebook with all of our info there. If you Google our name, our Facebook and Instagram comes up. So I'm like, why do we need to pay to have somebody build this website and maintain it and then hope it's going to work? You know, because everything, tech's changing so fast.
Yeah.
And what's the fastest way to keep up with tech? Have somebody else keep up with tech for you. And these free social media platforms are keeping up, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Instagram changed, and they're like, hey, do you want to change your bios now change? We're allowing more characters, and we're allowing shop links and this and that. So it just kind of evolved, and I just we never really ran out of work hard enough for me to be like, okay, it's time to build this kind of a website.
Interesting.
Because our credibility is already built there, and we don't go to the website and look at for like about us. Go to the bottom of the page and like learn who the founders are. My face is all over there. My face is everywhere, and my guys' faces are all over there. So yeah, we don't have a website currently. We do have a website that will be rolling out, just simply to share with all of our followers and the people who support us. They all love our hats. They love our logo. So they just want someone else who are going to help.
I want a piece of the action.
Yeah, they want a piece of the action, you know. Hey, where's my hat? You know,
Yeah.
the tradesman, you know that, right? You know,
Right.
the lumber guy comes around, he's handing out free hats. Like that free hat means more than a paycheck to you.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, right.
You know, you're a contractor, you're building that whole house, and that dude gives you a hat. You're like, dang. You don't care about the $100,000 you just made on the house.
Right.
You're going home. You're
excited
like,
about that.
hey, honey, guess what? Mike just gave me some new hats. I'm going to rep them everywhere. And that's kind of what we're doing with the website now. It's just so people can have a little bit of apparel to support us that way.
Cool. So now that you've gotten some notoriety, you're out there, people are recognizing you, know your name. I imagine you've probably had some opportunities to represent products, or I noticed Keen Boots seem to be something you're tagging all the time or kind of shouting out. Mm-hmm. Are there some products that you represent or that you're sponsored by or that hook you up from time to time?
Honestly, that's a great question. I truly believe in the products that we use, and I love them. And if I love them, I'll let you know. If I don't love them, I will
let you know.
I will let you know.
Okay.
We did have a company, a shoe company that reached out to us, and in the early stages, I think we had like 5,000 or 10,000 followers. They're like, "Hey, we'll give you some free boots," and I wore them, but there was a contract. The contract was you got to wear these boots, and we'll pay you this much, but we need you to post this many times or whatever. And so I did that, but the boots were garbage.
Okay, cool.
And, now all my guys wear these Keens. We don't have any sort of affiliation with Keen.
Okay.
Other than these boots have just performed, and we love them. And I hope that they give us credibility if Keen ever needs us to weld something. I hope they're like, hey, we're gonna call the Yeti guys because we know they do good work. And so the Keens, we're not sponsored by Keen in any way. We just really love their boots. We love protection. And but we have done other promotional projects where people have reached out. And in the emails, in the pre-emails, I tell them the same thing I just mentioned to you. If I like it, I'm going to tell you. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to tell my followers too.
Straight shooter.
Straight shooter. And if you don't want me to be honest, you want me to do a script.
I'm not your guy.
I'm not your guy. Yeah. I learned this thing a long time ago from one of my favorite contractors. He said, you hire and you fire your own clients. Your clients don't hire you. You hire your own clients. Same thing with the apparel, and that stuck with me early on, especially right after I wore those boots, because I had to wear them in, and see actually where they were. They were garbage. My feet hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But, I just let people know beforehand, and I do try them out, and then if I like them, we'll do them. So we have done a handful of other products, and stuff like that were paid promotion, but after they pass the test again, right? After I like them, I'm like, hey, got them, this is what we're going to do for you.
Good for you. Well, I love your coolers.
Oh, no, those are not our
I'm just kidding.
I know. I wish I owned a
They're
company.
expensive, right?
I wish I owned a company like that, man. But
you're like, I wish I owned a Yeti cooler.
I wish I owned a Yeti bike. The bike.
Oh, yeah. They got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I've been riding a Yeti bike for a little while. Or I've always wanted a Yeti bike. My friends always had it. I've never had money. I'm just broke while we do.
That's it. Love it.
I'm just broke.
Good for you. Well, so such a cool story, very fascinating. I think people really love this, and it'll resonate with a lot of folks. More on a personal level, just got a few questions I want to wrap up with. So what's one thing that you're grateful for just in your personal life?
My personal life?
Mm-hmm.
Probably be my wife,
Okay.
My wife and my kids.
Okay.
I come home all the time, I'm like, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm done welding. The world out there is hard. Sarah, she always reaffirms me that she's there for me, and that she appreciates what I do outside, and that's probably one of the most grateful things I am is for my wife and her support in being an entrepreneur. So that'd probably be my.
That's great. Yeah, it's not easy, right? It's not easy.
No,
she's signed up just like you are.
Yes, especially when you want to do your own thing as a boss. It's a whole family deal. It's a really lonely road that you walk, but it's also, everybody's signed up. Sarah calls and texts and says, hey, when you come home, and I'm like, I'm on my way, I'm just in a longer meeting, but it's not a set schedule, but so super grateful for Sarah and sticking with me on that. Allowing me to drop out of school, be one of those rogue dudes who's done with college, I'm going to be a tradesman.
Good for you.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love it.
So,
the blue collar is not a bad option.
Actually, I had a client the other day told me I was charging more than doctors and lawyers. And I said, it's not about, I didn't go to training, I might not have gone to school, but I know how to fuse atoms together and you don't.
Right? That's it. Yeah, the value of what you've got to offer.
Yeah.
Good for you. So what about a personal skill or Dillon's superpower? What would that be if there's something about you that's just your wheelhouse? What is that?
My superpower?
Mm-hmm.
I think my superpower is when I put my mind to a time frame or something that we need to do, I get it done in that time frame. And my guys know that too. I'll give them a deadline, like, hey, we told these guys it would be done then. They're like, there's no way. And it took a long time for my two hands to know that, but I think that's my superpower is when I set my time frame on something and we say we can accomplish it at that, we figure out a way. You know, you make time for things that are important to you, and if completing a task is important to you, you're going to figure it out quick. And I think that's my superpower, is figuring it out in that timely manner.
Love it. Yeah, that'll continue to bless your business if you're practicing that now.
Yeah, we try.
So,
I definitely try.
yeah, good for you. What about something you learned more recently that you wish you would have known, 6 years ago or so when you started? Is there something you're like, man, I got a lot of bruises on this thing. I wish I would have had this figured out.
Yeah. And I don't know everything. My employees know just as much. And I can trust my employees. I wish I could have done that I can weld, but so can a lot of other people. And I wish I could have trusted them to say, hey, you guys can do this, or you can do these welds too, just as good as I can. And I wish I would have known that longer. 4 years ago when I hired my first employee, I wish I could have instilled and let them know how much I trusted them. It's one thing just giving an employee a job and saying, hey, go ahead and do this.
Right.
But it's another to give them the affirmation like, hey, I trust you to do this, and I know you're going to do a great job. And giving them that affirmation I've seen way more success in letting people run with that versus just, here's your job.
Lets them grow, right?
Yeah, it lets them grow, and that lets them think like, this guy trusts me with this, and I've got to do a good job. I don't just have to do it and then clock out at 5 o'clock. And I wish I would have known that a longer time ago, because doing everything yourself for your whole life on the farm, growing up, like, oh, I'll just do it, oh, that's kind of a hard weld, so I'll just do it. But knowing
pretty
that
soon you're doing them all, right?
Yeah, and I can't do them all. We're getting too big. I simply can't do it all.
Yeah. I heard a quote the other day. It was something, I'll probably butcher it, but it was something like, true leadership is not having or being the only person with the good ideas. It's creating an environment where your teammates and other people that report to you, and have their good ideas come to light. And implement those, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Love it. Well, so what about a challenge or something that you really had to overcome and work through in business? What was something that was hard, and what did you learn from that?
Learning to say no. I have a very wide variety of skills. I can do a lot of stuff. And whenever somebody would say, can you do this? It was always yes. Yes. But that's been a big challenge. And I think it probably took me up until last year to finally start saying no, to certain projects and to certain stuff. It was always, can you do this? And it's like, you're a welding shop. Hey, can you make this wood table? Yes.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, I can hang those doors. Sure.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I can change a pipe. But that's probably one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn is just to say no. Knowing what avenue you should stay in and look forward to. So.
Love that. So to wrap up, last question: what would you hope the listeners would walk away with after hearing our conversation today? There's one thing.
Yeah. If there's one thing, you mentioned it. Just start. Don't feel like you have to have a huge following to do any sort of media, and you can only capture it once. You don't, like I said in the beginning, we would do projects, then we would undo. We would put a piece of a stair stringer in, and we would undo it just to take the shot. It's easier to start now, take the shot, even if you don't use it right away, you have the shot. And you can use that later. So I hope that the listeners, learning about what I've done for media and how I've grown with our media and what we've done, I hope that they just realize that they can start it. They don't need anything fancy. They just need to make sure that their employees know that it's okay to take a picture of something and to send it to somebody who's simply managing it, and let them take off with it, because it's not about what you do right now. It's about who has the loudest voice.
Love that. Awesome. Well, I hope you all learned how you can have a louder voice and swing a bigger stick.
Yeah.
Dillon's a great example of that, and he is definitely out there proving it every day, and you can follow along and watch.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, Yeti Welding. It'll come up.
We'll link everything up in the show notes and make sure that we tag all of your socials and your content and share that with our listeners as well.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate letting us come to stop by.
You bet. And thank you to the listeners for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you enjoyed the conversation that Dillon and I had today, please give us a 5-star rating and review, and follow us on all the socials, LinkedIn and Instagram at WorkMax_. And please, again, share this with those of your friends and other colleagues that you have that might be interested in learning from this discussion. Thank you all again. After all, our goal is to help you not only improve in business, but in life.